In a distant future, soldiers explore an old, broken spaceship filled with danger. Corporal Leo Dunn is injured by an old weapon, and his blood begins to heal itself in a strange and powerful way. This healing looks like tiny machines working inside his body, but it is actually his own blood acting like intelligent nanotech. Scientists from another advanced race study this with surprise and fear. They realize that human bodies are far stronger and smarter than they thought. This discovery changes everything, about medicine, war, and the true power of humans. The story is tense and emotional, showing the fight to survive in a dangerous place, and the wonder and fear of learning something new. The stakes are high because this discovery could change how the galaxy sees humans forever. The air inside the derelict freighter Star Wanderer was thick with rust, dust, and the sharp scent of broken machines. Corporal Leo Dunn moved slowly down the narrow metal corridor, every step echoing against the cold walls. He tasted the stale, faintly sweet smell of old life support gel in the air, a smell he had come to know too well. It meant danger, decay, and a long wait before rescue. Dunn's helmet radio crackled. "Fire Team Epsilon, status report," came the voice of Centurion Morton, sharp and firm. Morton was a corps soldier, part of an advanced, highly disciplined alien species known for strict rules and perfect control. His voice always demanded exact answers. "Pinned down, Centurion," Dunn replied, pressing his back against a cold pipe that leaked a strange ammonia smell. His heart raced, but his mind stayed sharp. Ahead, 2 corps soldiers, Lorik and Jorik, were pressed against the wall, moving carefully like surgeons in a tight space. Their armor gleamed white, clean and strange in this filthy wreck. "Hostile gremlin at Section Gamma 9, Dunn reported quietly. The gremlin was an old automated turret. Rusty, clunky, but still deadly. It still had power from a hidden capacitor bank and spat out bullets faster than expected. Morton's voice came again, impatient. "Suggestions, Corporal?" Dunn peeked around the corner. The turret swiveled slowly, its 4 barrels clicking and humming with rusty gears. Bullets ricocheted near his head, sending sparks flying. "Option 1, don't be here," Dunn muttered. Then he glanced up at a thick cable running across the ceiling. It looked newer than the rest. Sloppily repaired, but connected to the turret's power. "I suggest targeting the junction box up there," he said. "Jorik, can you get a plasma shot to it?" "Not too much. Just enough to fry the relays and cause a surge down the line. It might overload the turret's power regulator without blowing up the whole conduit." There was a long pause on the comms. Then Morton's voice broke through, heavy with tension. "Execute. On your mark." Dunn nodded. His breath caught. Jorik fired a bright blue plasma pulse at the junction box. Sparks flew. The turret twitched, then suddenly spasmed violently. A high-pitched whine filled the corridor, sharp and painful. Then, explosion. Metal shards flew everywhere. Dunn threw up his arm to protect his helmet, but a sharp piece slammed into his forearm. Pain exploded through his skin, bright and white-hot. He stumbled back against the pipe, breath knocked out of him. His ears rang. The alarms around the ship turned from sharp screams to a dull, distant hum. Then came the smell. Coppery and sharp. Blood. His blood. Dunn looked down. A deep, 4-inch gash sliced across his forearm, cutting through his suit's fabric. Thick red blood welled up and dripped down his arm. His training kicked in instantly, he clamped his gloved hand over the wound. The pain spiked again, but he fought it down. "Report, Corporal." Morton demanded. "I'm hit." "It's not critical," Dunn replied, voice strained. "Turrets neutralized. Paths clear." "No time for that," Morton snapped. "Dr. Nyla, converge on Fire Team Epsilon's position. We have a casualty." Dunn grimaced. The casualty was just a cut. A scratch. But Morton and the Corps soldiers treated it like a crisis. That was their way, clean, perfect, efficient. A soldier with a wound was a broken tool, no more. Minutes later, Dr. Nyla arrived. She floated in like a ghost, slender and tall, with 4 delicate arms moving smoothly as she examined the damage. Her large black eyes, like shining gems, focused on the wound. The small med drone at her side cast a blue light. "Corporal Dunn," she said in a calm, cold voice, "please present the injury." Dunn pushed off the wall and held out his arm. The bleeding had slowed, but the gash still oozed thick, dark red blood. Nyla's many eyes zoomed in. She froze. "This is unexpected," she whispered, voice trembling slightly. She reached for her med drone to spray stasis foam, the standard treatment to stop bleeding, but stopped. Her eyes grew wide. She zoomed in closer. The blood at the wound's edges was thicker, sticky. Tiny, silken threads of red wove themselves together, knitting the skin closed. The bleeding seemed to be stopping by itself. No foam needed. Morton stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "What is it doing?" Nyla studied the wound, voice low and full of wonder. "It is sealing itself. This is not a simple chemical reaction. It is active. Autonomous. It behaves, like intelligent nanotechnology." Dunn raised a brow. "It's called clotting. It's supposed to do that." Nyla ignored him, captivated. She projected a hologram above the wound, a magnified, swirling storm of tiny particles, cells, and proteins. They collided, stuck together, building a messy but strong net over the cut. There is no blueprint. No master plan. Each filament adds to the structure by chance and flow, Nyla said. It is chaotic, but it works. The Corps soldiers around her looked shocked. Their own medical machines worked by perfect, precise design. This wild, messy process was terrifyingly effective. Dunn flexed his fingers, testing the movement. The skin was tight, painful, and itchy. "It itches," he said, annoyed. Nyla's eyes locked on him. "An itch? Is that a signal? A way to tell you the repair is working?" Dunn laughed. "No. It just itches when it's healing. You're supposed to scratch it, though my mom always told me not to." The medics looked horrified at the idea. But Dunn was a soldier, used to dirt, blood, and grit. He trusted his own body more than any machine. Later, in the medbay on Sean's reach, Dunn sat on a clean slab, his blood-stained arm resting under the glow of powerful scanners. The room was perfect, all white and blue, cold and sterile, a place designed to fight the messiness of biology. Nyla and the Corps medics watched the wound carefully. The scab, ugly and uneven, was forming like a fortress built from chaos. They scanned deeper under the skin, watching white blood cells hunt and destroy bacteria like microscopic soldiers. "This is not a simple immune system," Nyla said. "It is a mobile, adapting army that learns and fights by itself." Morton stood behind her, silent but watching. His sharp mind was already seeing the battlefield, not just the biology. "This system is born in chaos," Nyla explained. "It is not efficient. It leaves scars and waste. But it is strong. It works in dirty, dangerous places where no perfect machine could survive." Morton nodded slowly. "Perfection is brittle. It breaks easily. This, chaos is survival." Dunn listened, tired but proud. His body, tested in mud and fire, was a weapon itself, stronger and smarter than anyone expected. Suddenly, the freighter shook violently. The power surged and failed. The medbay plunged into red emergency lights. The station trembled as alarms blared. The perfect order around Dunn shattered. A heavy metal beam crashed into the room, cutting through the air like a blade. Liuz, a young Corps medic, was struck. Purple blood poured from his side in thick, pulsing sprays. He collapsed, gasping. Nyla froze, powerless. Her machines were dead. The sterile world she trusted was gone. Without hesitation, Dunn sprang forward. He ripped fabric from his shirt and pressed it hard to the wound. His own blood-stained hands pushed down on the gaping hole, fighting to stop the bleeding. The room filled with raw, chaotic human determination, a desperate struggle to save a life when all technology failed. Nyla watched, awe and fear mixing in her eyes. The soldier was fighting death with the same wild, messy power inside his own blood. Dunn's hands pressed hard against the wound in Liu's side, his fingers soaked with the thick, dark purple blood. The pain in his own arm throbbed, but he ignored it. Every second counted. Liu gasped, his breathing shallow and ragged, eyes wide with panic. The silence around them was shattered only by the harsh alarms and the distant groan of the dying station. Corps medics hovered nearby, frozen in shock, their sleek uniforms stained with alien blood. Nyla's multiple optical sensors darted between the wounded medic and the useless machines around her. Her perfect world, built on sterile procedures and controlled environments, was crumbling. There was no nanite injectors, no clean med gel. Nothing to stop the bleeding but raw human will. Hold still. Dunn barked, his voice sharp with command. I'm not a medic, but I know enough to keep you alive. His own exhaustion vanished under the surge of adrenaline. He tightened his grip on the makeshift bandage, feeling the soft pulse of Liu's heart beneath his hands. Morton stood silently nearby, watching with a cold, calculating gaze. The Corps soldier was both impressed and troubled. Humans were messy, chaotic, but capable of incredible strength when it mattered. Dunn's actions were brutal, unrefined, but effective. Nyla stepped closer, her four hands moving slowly. She was desperate to help, but her training screamed against the dirty methods. Corporal, your hands, they are contaminated. This could cause infection, save it, Dunn snapped. Right now, keeping him alive comes first. Liu's blood was thick and dark, unlike anything Nyla had seen before. It pulsed with a strange life, like a storm raging inside a vessel. The wound began to slow its bleeding, the pressure working. Slowly, the panic in Liu's eyes lessened. His breathing steadied. This is more than medicine, Nyla whispered, awe breaking through her fear. This is survival born from chaos. The emergency lights flickered. The station shook again, dust falling from the ceiling. The med bay was no longer a sanctuary. It was a battlefield. Dunn's thoughts raced. The Star Wanderer was an ancient ghost ship, a tomb full of danger and secrets. They came for the ship's logs, answers buried in its rusted guts. But now the mission had changed. Survival was the priority. Morton, status? Dunn called through the chaos. The ship is unstable. Reactor containment is failing. We have limited time, Morton replied, voice steady but grim. Evacuation protocols initiated. Dunn looked down at his wounded arm, the dark scab beginning to harden. The strange, self-repairing blood was working, faster than any medtech could. The messiness that Nyla feared was strength, resilience. As if sensing his thoughts, Nyla approached. Corporal, your blood, it defies everything we know. It acts like a swarm of tiny machines, intelligent, autonomous. It adapts, learns, fights infection and damage on its own. It's biological nanotech. Dunn snorted. Sounds fancy. All I know is it's kept me alive more times than I can count. Morton's eyes narrowed. If humans carry this inside them, they are not just soldiers. They are walking fortresses. The room fell quiet for a moment, the harsh red lights casting long shadows. Then the ship shook again, harder this time. A loud crack echoed through the hull. The air smelled of burning circuits and ozone. Structural integrity failing, the ship's computer announced. Emergency shelters now. Dunn helped Liu sit up against a wall. The young core medic looked weak but alive. The blood on his side was stopped, but the wound was ugly, ragged. A scar in the making. "Let's get out of here," Morton ordered. "We move fast or we die here." The group gathered quickly. Dunn's arm ached sharply as he flexed his fingers. The scab pulled tight. He swallowed the pain. This body, this strange, wild biology, was a weapon as much as any gun or armor. They moved through the ship's broken corridors. The flickering emergency lights cast eerie shadows on the walls. Pipes hissed and sputtered. The ground trembled beneath their feet. Nyla stayed close, still fascinated by Dunn's healing arm. "Your blood's ability, it is a biological advantage unlike any we've seen. We must study it more." Dunn grunted. "Study away. Right now, I want to get off this death trap." Suddenly, a loud metallic screech echoed from ahead. The corridor twisted and collapsed in front of them, blocking their path. Dust filled the air, making it hard to breathe. "Alternate route," Morton said, voice cold and commanding. "Follow me." They ducked into a narrow maintenance tunnel, the walls damp and covered in rust. The air grew heavier, stale with decades of neglect. Dunn's mind drifted. He remembered stories from his childhood on Promise, a harsh colony world where every day was a fight against the wild, infections, injuries, poisons. Humans had to be tough to survive. "This blood," Dunn muttered to himself, "it's built for chaos." The others heard him. Nyla nodded, her black eyes shining. "It is. A perfect machine would fail here. Your biology thrives." They moved deeper into the ship's bowels. The ancient systems flickered weakly. Then a distant noise, the grinding of gears, slow but steady. "Turret reactivation," Lorik said, voice tense. "They're coming for us." Dunn felt a cold rush of fear. The gremlins, the automated defenses, were old but deadly. The ship was fighting them as much as they were fighting the ship. "Get ready," Morton said, raising his rifle. Dunn gripped his arm, feeling the strange pulse beneath the skin. The wound ached, but the healing threads were holding fast. His blood was a weapon, and he was still standing. The first turret appeared, a rusted monster firing wild shots. The team scattered, dodging sparks and bullets. Dunn crawled low, his mind sharp. "Cover me," he shouted. With a deep breath, Dunn moved forward, plasma pistol raised. He fired precise bursts at the turret's power source, the same weak points he'd learned to target earlier. Sparks flew. The turret shuddered and died. One by one, they fought through the defenses, each shot pushing them closer to the bridge, the ship's heart. Nyla followed, scanning every wound, fascinated and horrified in equal measure. "This is not biology," she whispered. "It is a system of autonomous agents working as one. The blood is a battlefield." Dunn grunted, ignoring the pain. "Blood or not, I'm not done yet." Suddenly, a loud alarm echoed. The ship's fusion core was failing fast. The reactor's magnetic field flickered, unstable and deadly. Morton's voice was urgent. "We have minutes before meltdown." Dunn's heart pounded. He thought of his comrades, the lives depending on them. The strange miracle inside his blood was more than healing. It was survival against impossible odds. "Move," Morton ordered. "We finish this or we die trying." Dunn pushed himself harder. Every step was agony, every breath a battle. His body was tired, but his will burned fierce. The bridge was ahead. The logs that might hold secrets to the ship's fall, and maybe the galaxy's future. The moment they reached the door, it hissed open, revealing the cold darkness beyond. The Star Wanderer was a tomb, but Dunn's blood was a spark of life in the void. The bridge was a shattered ruin, bathed in the pale flicker of dying emergency lights. Dust motes floated in the stale air, disturbed by their careful steps. The consoles, once a hub of life and control, were cracked and dead. But the data core, the ship's brain, still blinked faintly, a fragile heartbeat amidst decay. Corporal Dunn approached cautiously, his arm aching with every movement. The dark scab stretched tight, an imperfect shield woven by his own blood, a living, chaotic force that healed wounds without order or design. He flexed his fingers, the dull pain a constant reminder of his body's strange power. Centurion Morton was already working on the data terminal, his armored fingers moving quickly over the controls. The core soldier's sleek, white armor gleamed ghostly in the dim light, their motions precise, cold, and efficient. "Accessing ship logs," Morton said, voice steady despite the tension. "We need answers. Why was this ship abandoned? What caused the reactor failure?" Dunn wiped sweat from his brow. His own blood pulsed beneath the scab, a reminder of the fragile line between life and death. Nyla floated nearby, her multiple arms busy scanning the room. She was still entranced by the earlier events, the biological chaos she had witnessed on Dunn's arm and in Liu's rescue. Her mind raced with questions about human physiology, its unexpected intelligence, its brutal effectiveness. Suddenly, the terminal beeped. Data began to stream onto the holographic display, logs, reports, and warnings, all fragmented but telling a grim story. "Reactor containment failure," Morton read aloud. "The ship suffered repeated power surges. Systems degraded. Crew abandoned ship after critical damage to the fusion core. Attempts to stabilize were unsuccessful. The flickering lights dimmed further, signaling the ship's fading power. Time is running out," Morton warned. "We must retrieve all data and evacuate." Dunn's eyes drifted over the screens, but his thoughts returned to his wounded arm. The scab was now stiff, pulling the skin tight. He felt a strange itch, a sign of the living repair process working beneath. Nyla approached him quietly. "Corporal, your blood, it continues to astonish. The wound is stabilizing, but the repair is imperfect. Scar tissue forms, a monument to damage. Yet it functions." Dunn shrugged, trying to hide his discomfort. "It's not pretty. But it works." Morton's gaze sharpened. "It is a battlefield advantage. Your species survives where others would fall." Suddenly, a violent shudder rocked the ship. The floor lurched beneath them, throwing Nyla against the wall. Sparks flew from exposed wires. The reactor's instability was worsening fast. "Move!" Morton ordered, his voice a whip crack in the chaos. The team gathered what data they could and hurried toward the exit. But the ship was fighting them. Corridors collapsed, airlocks sealed unexpectedly, and the old defenses sparked back to life. A distant alarm blared, the core meltdown was imminent. Dunn's heart pounded. His body was screaming with exhaustion and pain, but his blood was still fighting inside him, knitting flesh and holding the line. As they raced through the twisting corridors, a burst of fire blocked their way. The old gremlin turrets had reactivated, their barrels spinning like metal beasts. "Take cover!" Morton shouted. Dunn dove behind a bulkhead, his arm throbbing with fresh pain. He looked at the dark scar, a chaotic fortress against destruction. "Cover me," he yelled. With shaking hands, Dunn pulled a grenade from his belt. His breath came fast. "On my mark," he called to Lorik and Jorik. They nodded, firing bursts to distract the turrets. Dunn tossed the grenade. It exploded in a blinding flash, frying the power to the turrets. The weapons died, their barrels still and silent. "Move!" Morton urged. The team pushed forward, desperation driving every step. Dunn's mind raced. This strange healing blood was his silent partner, fighting beside him without thought or command. Nyla's voice crackled in his ear. "Corporal, the blood cells behave like autonomous machines, hunters, repairers, and warriors all at once. They adapt to threats rapidly." Dunn wiped sweat and blood from his brow. I'm glad they're on my side. The corridors grew narrower, darker. The ship's dying breath echoed around them. Finally, they reached an airlock leading to the escape pods. Morton checked the controls. The pod bay was intact, but power was low. We have minutes, he said. Everyone, prepare for evacuation. Dunn slumped against the cold wall, fatigue threatening to overwhelm him. His blood's strange repair process was a miracle, but it came with a cost: constant pain, itching, and weakness. Doc, he said quietly, looking at Nyla. How long will this healing take? She studied him with a mix of awe and concern. Days, weeks. But your blood will keep working. It will protect you long after the scab falls. The alarm blared louder. The fusion core was moments from total failure. The team strapped into the pods. Morton nodded to Dunn. You survived this far. Now survive the next step. The pod sealed. The hatch hissed shut. With a violent shudder, the Star Wanderer exploded behind them. The ancient ship broke apart, its core unleashing a final, deadly burst. The pod rocked violently as it sped away from the wreck. Dunn's heart pounded. His arm throbbed, the scab tight and itchy, but intact. Outside the pod's small window, the shattered freighter burned and broke apart like a dying star. Dunn closed his eyes. He was alive. His blood had fought like a hidden army, a chaotic swarm of tiny machines inside him, weaving life from death. Morton's voice came over the comms. This changes everything. We underestimated humans. Their bodies are weapons. Nyla's voice added, quieter, full of wonder. Their blood is a miracle of chaos and survival. Dunn smiled weakly. Guess we're tougher than you thought. The pod drifted silently through the void. The story of human blood, intelligent nanotech born of chaos, was only beginning. The escape pod hummed quietly as it drifted through the dark emptiness of space. Inside, the small group sat in heavy silence. Dunn's arm throbbed relentlessly beneath the tight scab, the strange biological nanotech working without pause. His breath was shallow, his body exhausted, but his mind raced with questions. Centurion Morton stood rigid, eyes fixed on the pod's status panel. We survived the wreck, but the mission is far from over, he said grimly. The data we retrieved could change the galaxy's understanding of humans forever. Nyla, seated beside Dunn, tapped at her console, still absorbing the shocking revelations. Your blood, it is unlike anything we have studied. Autonomous, adaptive, capable of self-repair without external intervention. Dunn shook his head slowly. All I know is it keeps me alive. When everything else fails, my blood fights for me. Morton's gaze hardened. This biological system is a weapon, a living fortress. It shifts the tactical balance. The silence returned, heavy with unspoken fears. Outside, stars glittered cold and distant. Suddenly, an alarm blared. The pod sensors detected a fast-approaching ship. The core soldiers tensed instantly. Hostile vessel, Morton said. Prepare for combat. Dunn's heart sank. Just when he thought escape meant safety, a new danger arrived. The pod's screens flickered as the enemy ship came closer, sleek, dark, and armed. The pilot must have detected the distress signal. We can't outrun them, Morton growled. We have to fight. Dunn's blood pulsed beneath his skin, wild and restless. He flexed his fingers, the scab tightening painfully. Nyla's voice softened. Your physiology adapts to threats. It is a living weapon. Morton nodded. Then we use that advantage. The pod shook as weapons fired. Outside, bursts of light and energy streaked through space. Inside, the tension was suffocating. Dunn gritted his teeth, focusing through the pain. His blood's chaotic nanotech was alive, repairing damage and strengthening his body. The core soldiers prepared to counterattack, but Dunn had a different idea. "We need to get to the data," he said. "This ship might hold the answers. And maybe the way to fight." Morton hesitated, then agreed. "Fine. But we move fast." The enemy ship loomed, a shadow swallowing the stars. The pod docked with the alien vessel, and the group prepared to board. Dunn's arm ached, the scab a tight, burning shield. Inside, the ship was cold and silent. The core soldiers led the way, weapons ready. The corridors were sleek but unfamiliar. Nyla scanned the air. "Their technology is advanced but brittle. They rely on precision and order." Dunn snorted. "Sounds like the kind of place where my messy blood would cause trouble." They moved carefully toward the data center. The ship's crew was nowhere to be seen, abandoned or hidden. Suddenly, an alarm blared. Automated defenses activated, lasers, traps, and drones sprung to life. Morton barked orders as the team fought through the defenses. Dunn's body was tired, but his blood worked silently, healing wounds and keeping him strong. Nyla watched in awe as his arm repaired from stray cuts and burns sustained during the firefight. "Your blood is a self-guided repair system," she said. "No external nanotech could match this." Dunn grinned through the pain. "It's just what humans do." They reached the data core, ancient yet powerful. Morton worked quickly to extract the files. "Secrets about human biology," Nyla said, her voice barely a whisper. "It changes everything." Suddenly, the ship shook violently. The alien vessel's systems began to fail. A countdown timer blinked ominously. "Self-destruct," Morton warned. "We have minutes." Dunn helped Nyla carry the data. The scab on his arm stretched painfully, but he refused to slow. The team raced back to the pod, alarms blaring, the ship crumbling around them. They barely made it inside before the vessel exploded in a brilliant fireball. The pod launched away, shuddering from the blast. Dunn collapsed against the wall, exhausted but alive. Nyla looked at him, her eyes filled with wonder and fear. "Your blood is a miracle. A weapon forged by chaos and survival." Morton nodded solemnly. "The galaxy underestimated humans. Their strength is not just technology. It is in their very blood." Dunn smiled weakly. "Guess it's time they learned." Outside the pod, the stars stretched endlessly. Inside, a quiet battle raged, the fight for survival, and the fight to understand the true power within.